All pyramids, all the time on Brothers of the Serpent podcast.
And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, angels and demons and monsters and serpents to Brothers of the Serpent podcast. And we are coming to you live and not live from the 10 by 10 by 10 tangent cube of science, nestled amongst the dusty bones of an ancient seabed high atop the Edwards Plateau. So last week we, was it last week? Let's see. Yeah, last week we did the show with Ben. That was a YouTube special. And we did an audio version, audio show with Soraya, which we made as a swapcast. So hopefully you guys have seen both of those, listened to one of them and watched the other. With the live stream with Ben, we went through a lot of the pictures. Well, not a lot of them. A couple of sets of pictures specifically talking about certain things about Egypt that were interesting. And I think we're going to continue that today. Not pictures exactly, but we're going to talk more about our experiences within Egypt and how our thinking is evolving. And let's see, what do we have coming up? We're going to be doing a book report soon.
What did we decide to do? Have we made a decision on that?
No. Oh, what, today?
No. Just in general on the book report.
Oh, yeah. We're going to do, aren't we going to do Hamlet's Mill?
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Right, cool. Yeah.
I think we're going to do Hamlet's Mill.
It was my idea. I'm just kidding. But yeah, I've been.
It was your idea.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Both of our ideas for a long time, but
yeah, recently
mine.
Right.
Yeah, and I've been listening to Graham's version of it on Audible.
Yeah, that's right.
So I'm halfway through it. I haven't listened to it in a while.
Okay.
But a couple of days I got halfway through.
Yeah.
And it's good.
It's good.
So.
Good deal.
Heck yeah.
Well, do we have an agricultural update? Shall I play the jingle?
Well, built me a big wall of stones.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
I had to go rent a 8,000-pound Skytrack forklift, telescoping forklift to pick these stones up that I excavated from the top of the hill in the back and bring them down to the front, building the new entry sign. So
yeah,
it's going to be cool. It's about 6-foot wall. I'd say each stone is about 2 tons.
2 tons.
Roughly. Yeah. In some cases, there was definitely one that was more than 8,000 pounds, so it had to be 4 tons.
Yeah.
Or more because the Skytrack wouldn't pick it up.
It wouldn't pick it up.
I was able to flip it over and break it.
Man.
And then I was able to carry it down. But yeah, I was just like, the whole time I was doing that job, I was just like, this is crazy.
Yeah.
You know, these rocks are not that big.
Right. Compared to some of the stuff we saw in Egypt.
Yeah, they're just minuscule compared to some of that stuff. And I can just see how difficult that would be. I mean, if you, in this limestone too, is like, you know, it breaks.
Yeah.
So you're picking up some giant piece of limestone and it slips.
Right.
With all that mass above that flat surface. Yeah. And I mean, even if you dropped it a foot, it's just, break it in half.
Yep.
So, wow.
Yeah. And some of the, let's see, was it 2 years ago? I went around the property in a couple of places and stood some up.
Yeah.
And it doesn't last long. You know, I couldn't dig down to the bedrock in the places I chose to stand them up. So they're basically, I dug little channels and like jammed them down in these channels and then, tried to pack in the dirt around them. But over time, every time it rained, one of them would tilt a little more.
Yeah, of course. But if you were on top of a hill where the bedrock was right there.
Yeah. So the ones that I put up on the second terrace on top of the hill, they haven't tilted. They're still standing. But yeah, there was a set that I put right down where we have these two, like the driveway splits, so it makes this Y, and I kind of put a set of them right there. And the big one kept tilting more and more over time, and it recently fell over. So, yeah, it's
how heavy are the stones in Göbekli Tepe, the pillars?
Oh, I think off the top of my head, like 10 tons.
Good God.
Yeah.
Are you serious?
I mean, I don't know. Maybe the watcher can check that for us. But yeah, I'm thinking 10 tons or something like that.
That's insane.
They're big. They're tall. At least the central pillars are.
I'm looking it up right now. Because, I mean, this is just, I mean, I know I have a machine, right? I have this machine.
Yeah.
And I could have gotten a bigger machine. I mean, but I didn't have a bigger machine. I could have gotten a giant excavator and it might have seemed easy. You know, it just depends on the tool you have. But trying to imagine doing this with hand tools, rope and rollers and stuff.
Yeah.
And of course, moving one of these little 2-ton blocks that I had 500 miles. It's like,
yeah. So if most of it's the river, that's better, but you still have to get it on the barge or the boat or whatever, and then get it downriver, and and then you got to get it off the boat and to the site. I don't know. Sleds and rollers.
I don't know. It's just it just seems like an insane amount of work.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah.
You couldn't find the weight for the Göbekli Tepe?
I will just sit here in silence while I'm looking for it.
Okay.
I just need some.
Well, I can do space weather news while you're looking for that, which we get from spaceweather.com. Let's see. Solar Orbiter survives a risky flyby. Europe's Solar Orbiter buzzed Earth on Saturday, just 470 kilometers above the Atlantic Ocean. The close approach brought the spacecraft within the debris zone of Russia's recent ASAT test. Spoiler alert, it survived. Okay, so yeah, I guess there was a debris zone and the orbiter went through it without getting destroyed. Afterglow of a CME. A CME did hit Earth's magnetic field on November 27th. The weak impact did not cause a geomagnetic storm, but there was a beautiful afterglow. The display occurred hours after the CME struck. Earth was passing through the CME's wake when magnetic fields trailing the storm cloud opened a crack in our planet's magnetosphere. Solar wind poured in, sparking auroras around the Arctic Circle. This is not uncommon. First contact with a CME often produces surprisingly little activity, and then comes the afterglow. So, current conditions, solar wind speed, 365.5 kilometers per second. The density is 7.2 protons per cubic centimeter. Current sunspot number is 53. The neutron count is 9.3% above the space age average. KP index right now is 1, quiet, very quiet, but the 24-hour max was 4, which is rated as unsettled, the lowest version of unsettled. And let's see, they have forecasts? Yeah. Very low chance of geomagnetic storms all across the board, high latitudes and mid.
Wow. Okay. I just pulled this one up. It says a number of the T-shaped limestone megaliths, some of which surpass 16 feet in height and weigh as much as 50 tons.
50. Wow.
Conflicting infos, maybe. Somebody else says 8 to 10 metric tons. That's insane. But still,
yeah, so the big ones might be 50 tons. God. Holy shit.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
If that's correct. But yeah, anyway.
Right, so you're moving around ones that are 2, maybe 4.
Yeah, maybe 4
max. Yeah.
Because I would stack up 2 of them on the machine and take them down there.
Yeah.
You know, it didn't want to pick them up. So I was assuming, it was around, the load was around 8,000 pounds.
8,000 pounds.
Just right at the, it wouldn't pick it up if it was extended at all. I had to bring it all the way in and then it would kind of lift it.
Yeah. All right. You got stories, or should we go?
I do. I have some stuff. It's, let's see what I got here. No, not that story. I'll start with the DART mission story.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh, and not that one. I can't even read the one from space.com. Okay, this is from phys.org. And it's a long one. It's not that bad.
No, just tackle it. Yeah.
Okay. A NASA spacecraft the size of a golf cart has been directed to smash into an asteroid with the intention of knocking it slightly off course. The test aims to demonstrate our technological readiness in case of an actual asteroid threat. The Double Asteroid Redirection Test, or DART, lifted off aboard a SpaceX rocket from California on November 23rd and will arrive at the target asteroid system in September next year. The mission will travel to the asteroid Didymos, Didymos. Not sure how to pronounce it, but Didymos.
Yeah.
Didymos.
Didymos. I don't know. Don't ask me.
Didymos. A member of the armored group of asteroids. Every 12 hours, Didymos is orbited by a mini-moon, or moonlet, Dimorphos. The smaller half of the pair will be DART's target. We've all seen disaster movies in which an asteroid hits Earth, creating an extinction event similar to the one that killed off the dinosaurs millions of years ago. Could that happen now? Well, Earth is actually bombarded frequently by small asteroids ranging from 1 to 20 meters in diameter. Almost all asteroids of this size disintegrate in the atmosphere and are usually harmless. There is an inverse relationship between the size of these objects and the frequency of impact events. This means we get hit much more frequently by small objects than large ones, simply because there are many more smaller objects in space. Asteroids with a 1 kilometer diameter strike Earth every 500,000 years on average. The most recent impact of this size is thought to have formed the Tenumer impact crater in Mauritania 20,000 years ago. Asteroids with an approximate 5 kilometer diameter impact Earth about once every 20 million years. The 2013 Chelyabinsk meteoroid, which damaged buildings in 6 Russian cities and injured around 1,500 people, was estimated to be about 20 meters in diameter. So then they show an animation of DART's trajectory around the sun, blah, blah, blah. Let's see. NASA's DART mission has been sparked by the threat and fear of a major asteroid hitting the Earth in the future. The Torino scale is a method for categorizing the impact hazard associated with a near-Earth object, or NEO. It uses a scale from 0 to 10, where 0 means there is negligibly small chance of collision, and 10 means imminent collision, with the impacting object being large enough to precipitate a global disaster. The Chicxulub impact, which is attributed to the extinction of non-avian dinosaurs, was a Torino scale 10. The impacts that created the Barringer crater and the 1908 Tunguska event both correspond to Torino scale 8. With the increase of online news and individuals' ability to film events, asteroid near misses tend to generate fear in the public. Currently, NASA is keeping a close eye on asteroid Bennu, which is the object with the largest cumulative hazard rating right now. You can keep up to date with that to this link that I can't post in audio. With a 500-meter diameter, Bennu is capable of creating a 5-kilometer crater on Earth. However, NASA has also said there is a 99.943% chance the asteroid will miss us. At one point in their orbit around the sun, and this is back to Didymos and Dimorphos, they come within about 5.9 million kilometers of Earth. This is still further away than our moon, but it's very close in astronomical terms. So this is when DART will hit Dimorphos. DART will spend about 10 months traveling towards Didymos, and when it's close by, will change direction slightly to crash into Dimorphos at a speed of about 6.6 kilometers per second. The larger Didymos is 780 meters in diameter and thus makes a better target for DART to aim for. Once DART has detected the much smaller Dimorphos, just 160 meters in diameter, it can make a last-minute course correction to collide with the moonlet. The mass of Dimorphos is 4.8 million tons, and the mass of DART at impact will be about 550 kilograms. Traveling at 6.6 kilometers per second, DART will be able to transfer a huge amount of momentum to Dimorphos to the point where it's expected to actually change the moonlet's orbit around Didymos. This change, to the tune of about 1%, will be detected by ground telescopes within weeks or months. While this may not seem like a lot, 1% is actually a promising shift. If DART were to slam into a lone asteroid, its orbital period around the sun would change by only about 0.000006%, which would take many years to measure. So we'll be able to detect the 1% change from Earth, and meanwhile the pair will continue along its orbit around the sun. DART will also deploy a small satellite 10 days before impact to capture everything. This is NASA's first mission dedicated to demonstrating a planetary defense technique. At a cost of $330 million US, it's relatively cheap in space mission terms. The James Webb Telescope, set to launch next month, costs close to $10 billion. There will be little to no debris from DART's impact. We can think of it in terms of a comparable event on Earth. Imagine a train parked on the tracks, but with no brakes on. Another train comes along and collides with it. The trains won't break apart or destroy one another, but will move off together. The stationary one will gain some speed, and the one impacting it will lose some speed. The trains combine to become a new system with different speeds than before. So we won't experience any impact, ripples, or debris from the DART mission. The results from the mission will tell us just how much mass and speed is needed to hit an asteroid that may pose a threat in the future. We already track the vast majority of asteroids that come close to Earth. So we would... Here we go with that idea again. So we would have early warning of any such object. Except for all the ones that we don't notice.
Right, and those are all the ones that are above 1 kilometer.
That said, we have missed objects in the past. In October 2021, asteroid UA1 passed about 3,047 kilometers from Earth's surface over Antarctica. We missed it because it approached from the direction of the sun.
Yeah.
At just 1 meter in size, it wouldn't have caused much damage, but we should have seen it coming. Building a deflection system for a potential major asteroid threat would be difficult. We would have to act quickly and hit the target with very good aim. One candidate for such a system could be the new technology developed by the U.S. spaceflight company Spin Launch, which has designed technology to launch satellites into orbit at rapid speeds. This device could also be used to fire masses at close-passing asteroids.
So wait,
there you go.
The 1% are trying to change the orbit of the asteroid 1%. I think there's a conspiracy in there somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah, I think this is great.
It's cool, yeah. Yeah.
But yeah,
it's a good experiment.
It just shows you, how I mean, they're trying to change the moonlet.
Yeah. The moonlet of the actual
1%.
asteroid. Yeah, right.
Of the actual asteroid.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, granted, these are quite large, but yeah, what did it say they were?
Yeah, the idea is if you know about it far enough out, I mean, the tiniest change, from an impact can have a drastic effect on it 50 years down the road, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Enough for it to miss.
Early enough, right?
Yeah, exactly. So that's a good test, right? It doesn't matter what the mass of the satellite is.
It just gives you an idea.
Yeah,
of what
exactly.
you need.
It doesn't matter what the relative masses of the satellite and I mean, it does matter a little bit. You need a satellite with enough inertial mass, and an asteroid with a small enough inertial mass to where it doesn't take you centuries to see the results.
I mean, okay, they're not actually that big.
Given this impact, they'll be able to do better calculations in the future. So
these are not that big. Didymos is 780 meters in diameter.
Yeah.
So
almost a kilometer.
The other one is 160 meters.
Right. Big enough to cause serious problems.
Yeah.
Both of them.
Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, we'd have to send up a pretty serious payload.
Yeah.
For a kilometer wide.
Yeah.
Chunk.
Yeah. You'd need
And then what do you do with a comet? Because
it's just going to shatter if you hit it really hard.
It's like you can nudge it a little bit so that the nucleus doesn't hit you.
Yeah.
But then it's going to get into you don't even know.
You got
it's
a cloud of shit around it. Yeah.
There's two options. It's like based on its trajectory when it's I don't know what they call it, extrasolar, when it's outside of the solar system. Or I guess it's not really outside the solar. When it's far away.
Yeah.
They might say, well, it's a direct hit.
When it's a Neptunian object. Or
yeah,
whatever.
you can say it's a direct hit, but once it starts getting close, it's like it's probably going to change.
Yeah, and it's going to get dragged around by planets.
Yeah.
And moons.
So then
you have a 3-body problem issue there.
Right. So you can say, well, it's a direct hit. We ought to nudge it, but of course, then you could nudge it in a direction that would make it a direct hit later.
That's right. Yeah.
If it's not a direct hit, it's like, don't bother it. But then it gets into the inner solar system and changes direction.
Yeah.
and
Your best bet is to try to aim it at one of the outer planets.
that's what you got to do.
Right?
Yeah.
You know, you're like, okay, if it's way out there in the Kuiper belt, or it's coming in from the Kuiper belt, if we can nail it just like this, it'll run
It'll hit
into
Jupiter
It'll
or
run
whatever.
into I mean, even Jupiter might be too far because you have to pass a bunch of orbits there. Like try to make it hit, Neptune. If you can. I don't know.
Yeah, but this is a good start.
Yeah,
right?
it is.
It's a good dart.
You got to. It's a good dart. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Yeah, I got.
We moved okay.
Let's see. Well, I just got this one other one. And this is I just found this randomly. This is actually from 2010. But I thought it was cool.
This is Space's website?
It's space, yeah.
Okay.
I actually took space.com off of my news feed.
Oh,
finally.
Because it's just
too
hard to read the articles?
It fills up, first of all, it fills up my news feed with advertisement articles so that they show up in my news feed
okay.
with headlines
Oh.
over and over and over and over. There's
Yeah,
so
that's
many.
annoying.
And then the other thing is their freaking mobile site just drives me insane.
It's terrible. Yeah.
And then their story on the DART mission was just like, oh my God. All right. So anyway, how do we have the right to push objects around in space? I don't know. It's just ridiculous. Really? Yeah. I'm just like, yeah, okay. Anyway, I wasn't supposed to bring that up. Okay. This is cool. I like to go out and, do skygazing, stargazing or whatever at night. And so this is kind of what I was looking at. Randall was talking about a little sneak preview here. He was talking about precession.
Yes.
And he was saying, it's 50 arc seconds per year. So I was just like, how, what is an equivalent, because you could, if you hold your arm out at full length and put your thumb up,
Then you can see Nibiru.
that's like, yeah, you block out the sun, you can see the second sun. Classic ancient joke on this podcast. No, but it's basically it's like it's either one. I can't remember. I think
degree
it's
of arc or
I think it's
two?
about a half a degree of
Half
arc
a degree. Okay. Yeah.
because you can cover up the moon,
Right.
right, with the tip of your thumb or whatever.
Yeah.
And the moon is a half a degree of arc in the sky, and that's what this was about. I was wondering, like, well, 50 arc seconds. Yeah, that's really small. So I looked it up. It's a 36th of the width of the moon. So there's no way. I mean, you could hold a needle up.
Yeah.
I mean, how many needles would you, if you put 36 needles in a row, it would probably be wider than your thumb.
Yeah,
So
but if you pointed all the tips at each other, it might be about right.
That's what I'm saying. So yeah, like that's how many, like 50 seconds of arc is a 36th of the width of the moon,
Okay.
right? The moon is a half a degree of arc.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's a very small amount that that due to precession, the background stars seem to shift the opposite direction once a year, that much. 1/36th the width of the moon. So it's not going to be noticeable in a year unless you have this incredibly precise alignment
Yeah.
tool, like with a needle point.
Yeah. Right.
A couple of stones that you stand up are not going to do that
I'm
for
not
you.
going to show it to you. Yeah.
And even, 1 degree of arc is 2 moon widths. So 72 years later, that's all you got.
Right.
So they would have to be sharp stones, right? Sharp points. Anyway, so
that's great.
Let's just take a look at this article real
Okay.
quick. Sometimes the apparent distance between two celestial objects and the distance that we can actually see on the sky is indicated in terms of angular degrees. But these descriptions can seem like a foreign language to folks who don't pore over star charts every day, so here is a handy primer. If we measure the distance around the circle of the entire horizon from north all the way around through the east, south, west, and back to north again, it would equal 360 degrees, obviously.
Thank you, Space.
Thank you, Space.com. From the horizon to the point directly overhead, the zenith would equal 90 degrees. From one horizon point through the zenith and continuing across to the opposite side of the sky would measure 180 degrees.
Wow.
That's brilliant. I should have skipped that part. And look, The rest of the article went completely blank. This is what I'm saying, folks.
Yeah. It's all right. We can handle it.
It's still
in there somewhere.
All right. Well, I'll just have to open a new tab and go back to my bookmark and pull it up again. Okay.
You don't just switch it to desktop, or is that worse?
With the iPhone, it just doesn't do anything.
Okay. All right.
You can also use your clinched fist as a sextant. Now, that is not referring to anything having to do with sex, people. I'll cut that part out. Okay, so you can use your clinched fist as a sextant to measure the height of the moon, star, or planet above the horizon. Your clinched fist, correctly held, will roughly measure off 10 degrees. So you can use your fist to make a reasonable guesstimate of degrees either horizontally or vertically. The stars themselves can serve as handy yardsticks in the sky. The famous Belt of Orion, for instance, measures 3 degrees, and the twin stars of Gemini, Pollux and Castor, which that would be their heads, I believe, are 4 degrees apart.
I think Matheson has told us some of this before.
With the fist?
No, not the fist, but he's given us the degrees of like Castor and Pollux and stuff like that.
Okay. 4 degrees apart.
Helping you measure things in the sky. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah.
So the constellation of Leo, the lion, at the time of this article's writing, it conveniently stood high above the southern horizon at dusk. The backward question mark pattern of stars, popularly known as the sickle, forms the lion's head and measures 14 degrees from top to bottom. The distance between Leo's 2 brightest stars, Regulus at the bottom of the sickle, and Denebula, which marks the tip of the lion's tail, is 24 degrees. And then they go on to talk about planetary conjunctions and how close they get. But the more interesting
isn't
part,
a conjunction like it has to be within 5 degrees or something like that for it to be called a conjunction?
That's a good question. Well, maybe I should read this part. Occasionally, 2 planets or a star and a planet will appear exceptionally close together in the sky, their distance being less than a degree apart.
Okay.
In such unusual cases, we would measure the distance between the 2 objects in tenths of a degree, or in more extreme cases, in arc minutes. 1 degree, for instance, is equal to 60 arc minutes. 1/2 of degree, which is the average apparent size of the moon, is equal to 30 arc minutes. I don't think that they're saying a conjunction is less than 1 degree.
Yeah, they're just saying that they can get that close.
Yeah. Let's see, the Big Dipper, or the Plow, if you're reading this in the UK. The star at the bend of the handle is Mizar, which appears to have a fainter companion about 1/5 as bright, known as Alcor. Mizar and Alcor together are sometimes called the horse and rider, and the ability to resolve the 2 stars with the naked eye is often quoted as a test of eyesight. Although even people with quite poor eyesight can see the 2 stars. They are separated by just 0.2 degrees or 12 arc minutes. Check them out tonight for yourself. Indeed, 2 bright planets, or a bright planet and a bright star that are separated by less than this distance, can make for a stunning visual spectacle. So then they talk
Give you a
about
table.
They give you a table with a bunch of different ones. And I think, okay, what was the Jupiter and Saturn one we looked at on the December 21st in 2020?
Yeah.
That was 6 arc minutes. That's how close they were together.
That's really close. That was cool. It was enough to get them in the same view in the telescope. Yeah. Which was
And
cool.
I mean, in that telescope, you can't even get the whole moon.
Yeah. Right.
In the viewfinder at one time.
Yeah,
right?
if you're using the right lens, you can see, you can look at the moon where it's way bigger than
right, but we were using the most powerful lens
using a very
and getting both of them in.
and still both of them were in there. Yeah, it was really cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you could see all their moons.
All their moons, yeah.
Yeah. Well, not all of them, the big ones.
Everyone.
All 72 of Jupiter's moons.
Let's see. Our Deceptive Moon. Because it measures 1/2 a degree in apparent size, some might think that the moon can be used to measure off angular distances. But this is far from the case.
Yeah.
For one thing, there is the famous moon illusion. in that our natural satellite seems to appear much larger in size when it lies close to the horizon. Indeed, a rising moon can sometimes appear absolutely enormous. Yet an hour or two later, it will appear to have shrunk to a considerably smaller size. This strange effect has intrigued artists and puzzled psychologists for many years and has perplexed people since the earliest historical times, such as Aristotle. Notice he didn't say it puzzles astronomers. Why do you think that is? He says it has intrigued artists and puzzled psychologists. I thought that was interesting. Do you know why this happens? The article says no one seems to know exactly why this happens.
Yeah. I've heard two things, that
Okay.
there's a lensing effect when it's down at the horizon, and
Yes.
also that there's a visual illusion when it's close to the land surface that you can see, or close to stuff out there on the horizon, that it appears to be bigger just because of the way your brain interprets it.
Yes.
It's probably a combination of those things, right? But I don't know.
Do you think there's atmospheric lensing going on?
I mean, I can imagine it, because you've got to, well, unless the Earth is flat. If the Earth is flat, then
Well, I
there's
mean,
no
you're
lensing.
looking through all that atmosphere, even on the flat Earth.
Yeah, and it's got this curve right there. That's right. You're right.
Oh.
It's the curve that I'm talking about with the globe Earth that causes the lensing.
Really?
I think so.
I thought it was just the magnification of the light from reflecting on all the particles in the air. Of course, I don't know.
That's diffusion.
Okay. All right.
That could be part of it too. That's a great. I've never
Kind of like if you have a light source and then you put a sheet in front of it, like the
it
circle
looks
on the sheet
larger.
is large.
Yeah, because it's being diffused. Yeah, that's a great point.
And that, the flat Earth people out there would totally agree with me on that one.
That's right. It has to look through a lot of atmosphere.
a lot of the firmament.
That's right. Yeah. Okay.
All right. No one seems to know exactly why this happens, says the writer of this article, though the most popular explanation is that the moon illusion is an optical illusion related to the Ponzo illusion, in that the human mind judges an object's size based on its background with foreground objects, such as trees and houses, tricking our brain into thinking the moon is much bigger than it really is when it's at the horizon. So you did mention that one.
Yeah.
He doesn't even mention the atmospheric lensing. Or she. I don't know who wrote this. But even when it appears high in the sky, the moon looks too big to be 1/2 a degree in width. And this illusion is not confined to the real sky, but is even evident in the pretend universe of a planetarium. When the very first projectors were designed and made to project the moon's image of 1/2 degree on the planetarium's dome, as it appears in the real sky, it was found that it appeared too small to be realistic, although it was in actuality the correct
the right
angular
size.
size with respect to the background sky. To rectify this problem, engineers doubled the size of the projected moon image to 1 degree, which presents a much more realistic appearance, one of the few places where accuracy was sacrificed for the sake of realism.
Yeah.
I found this to be really interesting. I did not know that.
Accuracy
Was
sacrificed
sacrificed.
for realism.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because in a planetarium, you want it to feel like you're actually looking at the sky.
Yeah, of course. So accuracy doesn't give you the real thing, is basically what that's
That's
saying.
what they're saying. Accuracy doesn't look right.
Yeah.
Similarly, the real moon appears much larger against the real sky. And, because he was saying in the planetarium, this is the made-up universe. So it looks much larger against the real sky. Try this mental experiment some night when you can see both the Big Dipper and the moon in the sky at the same time. I think you should say full moon. First, look at Dub and Merak, the two stars that are commonly used to point towards Polaris, the North Star. Now looking at the moon and then back to Dub and Merak, try to estimate how many moons you could fit between the two stars.
Many moons.
Keep in mind that those two stars are separated by 5.5 degrees. And as we've already noted, the moon itself appears 1/2 degree in width. That means you should easily be able to squeeze no fewer than 11 moons between the two stars. It is a fact that is very difficult to accept. My cat is out there howling at the moon. Shut up, dude. Dude. All right.
Oh, well.
Maybe 4 moons can fit in the space between the stars, 5 at the very most. But 11? No way.
No way.
Yeah, so
those 2 stars are the ones at the end of the scoop of the Big Dipper.
Yeah,
right?
the end of the handle of the Big Dipper that you use to... No, the end of the scoop.
The end of the scoop, yeah.
That point towards Polaris.
Point towards Polaris.
You can fit 11 moons between those 2 stars. But it only looks like you could maybe fit 4 or 5.
Yeah. Wow.
I just found this strange. Like, that is really strange. And I wonder, is it the brightness?
It's doing it on purpose.
It's making us think it's larger than it really is.
That's right. Yeah. That just, I don't know. That's interesting because it implies some kind of strange possible psychological effect. And then you start to think about how full moons make people weird. And it's beaming something down here.
Yeah.
Making us think it's bigger than it is. I don't know.
Right. All right.
All right. Yeah. We got to take a break.
Who built that thing?
Yeah.
All right.
We'll come back with some emails and then dive into Egypt again.
Snakes!
And we are back, ladies and gentlemen. Brothers of the Serpent podcast, episode 221. And I did some news stories completely all the way through the first segment. So we're going to do some emails before we get back to pyramids.
That's right.
And looking forward to hearing from y'all.
We also had the crypto update, which I forgot to do at the beginning. Bitcoin is $58,330.01 right now, and Ethereum is $4,452.99.
Heck yes.
Yeah. Bitcoin is floating.
I wonder what's going to happen. I wonder if it's going to do another.
It's going to take off to
skyrocket.
100,000.
Yeah, because
need to buy in.
there's inflation going on, all this stuff.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised
I wouldn't
if it
either.
did. Yeah, I was thinking about we should
We need to buy in.
buy
more.
a couple of
Satoshis. All right. Let's see. This is from Mike. And he said, it's called Ponderings on Pyramids. Greetings, Snake Bros. I've been a long-time listener and thought it was about bloody time I sent a message. What has prompted me to finally write to you is your recent ponderings on what the heck those giant pyramids, bowls, underground pipework, and other crazy stuff in the desert were for during episode 219, Straight to Pyramids Part 2. Your thoughts seem to go somewhat closely, at least in terms of alchemy, in the direction of some great ideas by a guy named Geoffrey Drum. YouTube channel is called The Land of Chem, that I recently stumbled upon during some late-night snaky researching, so I thought you might be interested. In short summary, his idea is that each pyramid had a function as a chemical plant, each one producing a different chemical as part of an overall process to make useful substances for a civilization engaging in large-scale farming. For example, the stepped pyramid of Djoser as a biogas digester making methane, the red pyramid receiving that methane to turn into aqueous ammonia, and the bent pyramid for turning that ammonia into ammonium bicarbonate, which is a great fertilizer for crops. This really struck a chord for me as I work in the petrochemicals industry, especially the idea he has for the red pyramid, as this closely matches, albeit in a more simplified way, the modern process for making ammonia. This guy seems very well researched, having taken a few trips to Egypt with Yusuf as his guide, so I think it's worthy of some consideration. So if you can spare the time, here's his vid. He gives us a link. Which on the red pyramid, which is the best one to start from. Keep up the great work. Yours is truly one of the best podcasts out there. Best wishes and snacks from Mike.
Thank you, Mike. And yeah, I think that's a cool idea too. Chemical, like a chemical plant, was it?
Yeah, like all of them are for making. Like you use this one to make that, and then you take that and put it in this one to make the next step,
cool.
and then you take that and put it in this one to make the next step. And
yeah, I like that.
I mean, yeah,
that's cool. That's cool.
Like some kind of plant. Or like a machine or a
plant,
system.
yeah.
It makes more sense than people walking around in the dang thing. The question is like, you know, where is the output?
Yeah, that's a good question. I've been reading some Flinders Petrie. Thank you. Damn it. Wanax of the Pit.
Old Tony?
Tony.
Yeah.
God dang it. I couldn't remember.
Wanax.
Wanax of the Pit for cleaning up that book for me. And it's been great. Yeah. There's really good diagrams in there too that, you know, Petrie's kind of figured out some of the doors of these pyramids, the way they worked. You know, to the descending passageway, the doors on the outside.
Yeah.
And they're interesting. They're not like I don't think in any of the case of these doors could they be perfectly flush and hidden. And they look like they're almost like what do you call it? Check valves. They only open out,
Yeah.
right? And so they would let something come out, but not in. So if there was pressure building up from the inside, the door would open. But if there was a vacuum, it would close and not draw any air in. But of course, in the Great Pyramid, you have the shafts.
Yeah.
But that's an interesting idea, thinking of a chemical plant, because the Queen's Chamber shafts obviously would be pressurizing something else inside the pyramid. The King's Chamber shafts are... And, of course, we don't know where there are trapdoors on the King's Chamber shafts because we didn't see the casing stones. They could have all had trapdoors on them.
Yeah. Yep.
Thus,
and the Queen's Chamber
only
shafts,
letting pressure out.
The Queen's Chamber shafts didn't actually open up into the chamber. So
That's true.
It would be a slow pressurization like once it got high enough pressure, it'd have to force its way through the stone into the shafts. Interesting idea.
Yeah, it's cool. And then you have of course, this weird sewer system on the outside that we thought, could this have to do with metallurgy? And still, I don't understand how, but I don't understand enough about metallurgy, but yeah, there's like troughs and bowls and, you know, what, maybe they were for gases, not liquids. So you didn't need to clean them out.
Whistles. You build up the pressure and then the door opens, it's whoo, and just blows this huge cloud of steam out. The whole pyramid is just, you know, giant whistle.
Yeah.
Come to dinner.
Geo whistle.
All right. So some of you may remember the 1-up box we got where we couldn't
pyramid game.
Yeah, where we couldn't read the handwritten letter.
Yeah.
And we demanded that he send it to us in email, and he did. So should I read some of this?
Yeah.
Okay. First he says, I guess I'm a bit old school, and although I'm only 40, I seem to have the traits of an older person, one of which is handwriting letters if they are to anyone I hold in high esteem. So although it took me a while to write that letter, I typed it out in full first so I could edit it. So he basically had it typewritten out, and he just sent us this version. So here's the letter he sent with the 1-up box. Russ and Kyle. The Mysterious Cities of Gold cartoon series screened here in the UK in the mid-1980s, which fascinated me as a 5-year-old. It was the quest for El Dorado, unearthing the ancient and finding clues and artifacts leading to the hidden legendary land. It blew my tiny young mind as I was more accustomed to Postman Pat and bedtime stories, which is, I've never heard of Postman Pat. Yeah. When my dad studied metallurgy at Manchester in the early 1970s, he went along to an evening guest seminar held by Eric von Daniken. And it must have resonated with him, as there was a hardback copy of Chariots of the Gods in the bookcase when I was young. I used to look at the photos of the cave paintings and the art and the carved figures, etc., which I found interesting, but at the time, I didn't know what I was looking at. As with many, it was Egypt, which I studied at school at age 9, which really fascinated me. My teacher, Mrs. Knox, a vicar's wife, had taken her summer holiday in Cairo, which was an incredibly exotic location for a teacher working in a village school just outside of Derby, especially on the combined wage of a teacher and a vicar. I like to think that she might have had such dedication that she went for her pupils as much as herself. She certainly taught us with insight and passion on many aspects of the ancient culture. The content was very much mainstream at that time. Ancient Egypt seemed like a different world with mysterious, ominous gods, customs and impossible scales of grandeur for such a long time ago, despite what the teaching said. It was sheer magic to me at that age. My mum was quite religious, my dad not, but as such, as kids, she always took us to church, which was Pentecostal, best described as clappy. As a budding guitarist, I was in the band too. Our minister was interested in the archaeology of biblical artifacts and locations, and once a month he would present a talk instead of a sermon, all about recent finds with hand-drawn sheets of maps, etc., displayed large on the overhead projector. He'd read passages of the Bible alongside these and match up the significance in detail. I always looked forward to this. They were very good talks, but as I grew up, I fell out of favor with the Christian teachings and moved away into a more secular way of life: beer, girls, cars, and guitars.
Understood.
All through my formative years, intriguing content from the ancient world was around, so it's little wonder that I ended up with my mind blown once again when I stumbled across Graham Hancock on Rogan. This was such an electrifying stimulus to what had become a dormant interest for me that it took me right back to those afternoons after school, transfixed to the plights of Esteban and friends in the Andes. I began listening to more and more content and followed the well-trodden audio route of Rogan to Hancock to Carlson to Cosmographia to Snakes. My mom passed away in early 2020 from a brain tumor and associated cancer, and unlike my dad and two younger brothers, I found I began the grieving process when she first had the diagnosis, as she changed quite significantly over the next year, becoming more childlike. Dealing with her illness in this way enabled me to hold things together, to help the family and arrange all the details of the funeral, to speak at the service, and generally be very involved, taking the burden from my dad. I was with her very soon after she died, peacefully at their home, and it was a very quiet and gentle few minutes that I had alone with her, although it was clear to me that she was no longer there. Since then, I find myself pondering about the spirit realm more often. I came to Brothers of the Serpent for pyramids and ended up staying for everything else. I imagine your reasons for podcasting are many, not just your dream-led quest for the Pillars of Enoch. I'd like you to know that, as well as being entertaining, compulsive, brain-expanding listening, the posturizing over aspects of life outside of ourselves and outside of our world have been extremely comforting and enlightening, especially in that period I found myself in during the early 2020s. So thank you so much for that. I'm certain there are scores of people who have been affected in all possible ways by your infectious and relaxed delivery and content about the big questions. For each of us, the big questions are different, but listen to collated thinking on each subject spawns further thought and deliberation. I'm slowly opening up the noggin-warping mysteries of Egypt to my wife, Sally, via the excellent Uncharted X videos. And I'm finding a receptive audience. She hiked to Machu Picchu a few years before we met. It is one of my closest held ambitions to have a proper guided tour of Egypt, so I was dismayed to hear of John Anthony West's passing. What a character. But thankfully we have Ben, Yusuf, etc., and now the brothers to keep that torch burning and keep blowing minds and establish doctrine at exponential rates. So, I don't know when, but someday I'll be along with you on a tour of some sort. Just got to work out how to either convince the wife that I'm going, / we should take the kids, / find somewhere they can go for 3 weeks. In the meantime, I'll be soaking up content, converting listeners, and cheering you on from afar. Enjoy the pyramid. All the best. Yours ever, from Alistair in Derby, UK.
Wow, man. Thank you so much.
What a great note.
And I'm sorry for your loss.
Yeah.
That's, I know that's got to be tough. But it is definitely one of those things that gets you wondering about the spirit realm, for sure.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Wonderful letter. Thank you very much.
Yes.
Sorry we couldn't read your cursive, your beautiful cursive.
It was a beautiful note.
It was.
But, you know, all it takes is, I was explaining this in the Discord, even if I can read most of it, all it takes is one word that I can't decipher. And then the whole thing stops, and then I hand it to Kyle to see if he can figure it out. And then we're guessing and just, so it's best to have it typewritten.
I feel like maybe both of us are really bad at accepting, or I don't know, responding to that type of letter. It's like there's a lot in there, and I don't know if we're very good at saying thank you for that, but it really does mean a lot.
It does mean
to
a lot.
hear that the podcast somehow played that big of a role in your life is just amazing. One of the things that makes me love doing this. So thank you so much for that.
Yeah, and thanks for the pyramid game.
Which we still haven't
We
played.
still haven't played. We're gonna
But
have to
I
sit
am
down.
going to kick your ass.
We gotta try it out.
Yeah.
All right. This one's called Time Machine from Zach. It says, and bam! I have now gifted the brothers a movie/sci-fi style time machine. Not worrying about paradoxes, altered timelines, and all the other messiness associated with time travel. You have one shot to go safely there and back to see and learn about anything you want. When and where are you going? Given that you just came back from pyramids, my guess is something to do with them. I often think of this scenario as I listen to you talk about all the wonderful unknowns in our history. What happened at the Younger Dryas? Is the ancient alien thing real? Who are the Watchers really? Are the pyramids older than the standard model says? And what was the actual purpose of them? Can we save the Library of Alexandria or the burning of the Mayan texts? There is a lot to take into consideration, and if you only have one shot, which one do you choose?
How long do you get to stay?
You can go, and then you can come back. So I guess you could stay as long as you want. But you can only, like, the thing only works once, and then it's like a one-way, or it's a trip to one time and then a trip back, and after that it's broken. It never works again. You can't build another one either.
Okay, so
One
I
of
can
those questions.
so I can use my built-in time travel machine while I'm there and travel through time at a normal speed
Yes.
as far as I want.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. The point is like, which period are you going back to? You know?
Yeah. Can I take a helicopter?
Anyway, this is just a ridiculous thought exercise. I've just assumed that the time machine it can be a helicopter.
Oh, okay.
This is just a ridiculous thought exercise I've always wanted to ask my Snake Bros. It would be fun to hear your response on a listener communication soda or just in opening emails, but obviously that's up to you. Thanks for everything you guys do. Seeing the world through these eyes due to 33% brain expansion is, well, mind-blowing. Thanks for your time. From Zach. Snakes! Yeah, so it's a great question, and we have questions. Like, I want to know, is this like the H.G. Wells style, where when I pull the lever to go back in time, do I get to watch the exterior world move backwards?
yeah,
Because that would tell me what I want to do.
Yeah, let's fly to Egypt and get in it.
Yeah.
And then go back
And
to
then just go
before
back.
the Younger Dryas.
Yeah, and you can watch the whole process in reverse.
But yeah, 'cause if you couldn't do that, then I'd need to know if this thing is capable of helicoptering. Because I might want to go back.
Well, if it can manipulate time, it can also manipulate space. So it can just be in whatever position you want. You could just tell it, like, I want to float over this area, and it would have to follow the Earth in its orbit and the sun in its course and all that stuff. So it would be a complicated series of equations. But yeah, technically you should be able to it doesn't have to sit on land, because that would be a bad idea, because you could just appear inside
I was
of a hill.
imagining, like, I go back and get out of it, and then I'm there.
Yeah. But you're asking, can it fly
And
around?
I can stay there for like 20 years or something,
Yeah.
and then come back.
and then come back? Yeah.
But if it was into the Younger Dryas, for example, I would want a helicopter, because
You don't want to be on land.
I'd need to be able to fly over the Scablands and then fly over to Egypt to see if the pyramids are still there at that early date.
Yeah.
Maybe cruise by Göbekli Tepe area and go to Baalbek. But he said one place, so
Yeah. Well, one time. He's like, well, I guess he says when and where are you going? Yeah.
yeah. That's what I'm asking.
That's what I'm saying. Like, we need to know details about how this time machine works before we can answer this question.
Can I get on a boat after I go back and go across the ocean? Anyway, yeah, I mean, one great place to go would be to go back just prior to go back to the older Dryas.
Yeah.
Right before the Younger Dryas at Gizeh,
Yeah.
and be able to look around
Right.
and see what's there. Is
Yeah.
it just a forest? Is it,
Yeah.
is there a head carved in the Yardang that's sticking out, or is there a pyramid? I don't know. That would be a great one.
Yep. That would be a good one. Yeah, I like the idea. Like, I agree. We need details about how this machine works. I'm sure he's just thinking, like, you go back and you get to look at that.
Just a view of it real quick, and then you come back.
No, that's bullshit. That's not how this stuff works. Can we stay for 20 years? Yes, because we haven't turned it back on to go back yet. Yeah. Or maybe it's just a viewer, you know?
I mean, that would be really hard because, you got all these theories. I mean, really the best thing I could say is like, we need to know if there's an antediluvian high civilization.
Yeah.
And so if we think,
go look at the Azores.
that would be a great one.
Yeah,
That would be a great spot. But because that's the thing. That would be a really good one. Look at the Azores because
that would tell you a bunch of stuff.
That would tell you a lot. But if it wasn't the Azores, you'd be like, damn it.
Yeah, it's just a big island with nothing on it.
If there wasn't anything on Gizeh, then it would be the same deal. Now you'd come back and know, okay, they're younger than that.
Yeah, that's right.
Or you'd come back and know that the Azores is not where
Atlantis was or whatever. Yeah,
the center of some great civilization.
Yeah.
But it still wouldn't tell you if the civilization was there.
Yeah.
So, but another fascinating thing would be to just go back and look at the Scablands.
Yeah.
And the Canyon lands and the Colorado Plateau or the Grand Canyon. Mm-hmm. Any of those underfit river basins.
Oh yeah. The other
because you could go back hovering above that area of the United States and see a gigantic city.
Right. Yeah, that's true. Yep.
That's just completely gone now.
Yeah. The other thing you could do is go back and look at Gizeh at the beginning of the Old Kingdom and see if the pyramids are there and they're already all there.
That's
and
what
old,
I'm saying. Yeah.
Right. That would. So that way you wouldn't just see an empty landscape. They're going to be there probably.
And that's another part of the deal is that like, can I go back to the location of the Great Pyramid at the beginning of the Old Kingdom and get out of the machine and walk around and go like climb up the pyramid and try to get in the door and see what the interior looks like.
Right. Yeah.
Or is that seeing too many things?
Just have it appear inside the king's chamber,
Give me 20 possibilities. And then I'll still need more.
That's why I like the H.G. Wells version where you can just pull the lever back and then you can watch stuff happen.
Yeah, that would be bad.
Around you, right?
While you can see the clock ticking.
Yeah, it's going. And you're like, the pyramids go, they just disappear. Yeah. Come on.
Man, that would teach you so much because then you could tell how long it took to build them and what the structure that it started out being and all that stuff. That's the way to do it, bro.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and he was asking about, saving libraries. That was the other thing. Like, maybe you just, if you want to know all that stuff, go back to one of the libraries that got destroyed and steal a whole bunch of documents and bring them back to the present because the whole thing's going to burn down anyway, right? So they, the history assumes that all the documents were lost. So you just
want to go back.
You go steal them right
South
before they
America.
get burned. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. This is from Anne. Short one. She says, a few thousand years from now, when archaeologists uncover the statue of Kyle, they will no longer be able to understand the carving at the base, but they will treasure the ancient wisdom and place it on their buildings and on amulets they will wear. I didn't hit the record button from Anne.
That's true. Okay, I'm recording. Just making sure I had that.
Just making sure it's recording. This is from Carl.
Who will carve my likeness in granite?
Just find one already carved and write your name in it.
Carl.
All right, this is from Carl. Hey, Snake Bros. Just an email to thank you for the podcast. I signed up to your Patreon and now plan on ordering Christmas for myself by getting some of your tasty merch. Hey, thanks, buddy. Thanks for the support. Thank you so much. You guys actually got me fired up enough this last year to break out my literally rusty rock hammer and start getting my hands dirty again. It feels good to not just listen to you guys explain what mysteries are out there, but also to get involved with them. In short, this last year, I really caught fire. I've been digging up fossils and minerals in my area. I'm saving up for a trip to Egypt. Maybe I can plan to go when you guys are going there next. My awesome wife is also on board.
All right.
I even took a trip to Skinwalker Ranch with some pals. It's only a few hours away from where I live. That's a long story in itself. Maybe I'll email about that later. But to make a long story short, yes, I did indeed see UFOs or UAPs using modern day vernacular. They were only visible in the infrared spectrum using our night vision scope, one of the perks of belonging to a film crew. And they were absolutely silent. It was so bizarre. I'm betting the sense and wonder of seeing something like that is close to what you guys experienced seeing the gigantic pyramids at Gizeh. And as a believing and practicing member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, commonly known as the Mormons. I've also been diving into Mesoamerican interests as well. Right now, I'm being blown away by reading about the recent LiDAR scans showing the crazy numbers of Mesoamerican sites hiding away.
That's insane stuff.
I know you guys talk about the Book of Mormon from previous episodes. Its primary purpose is a spiritual one, to encourage us to be nice to each other and to show us how to connect with the big snake, if that's something you're after. However, the Book of Mormon in its original form is a codex of metal plates written by Mormon, which is where the translated title comes from, who belonged to the priest and ruling caste long ago in Central America. If you start from that point of view and align the codex's contents with the archaeological sites that have been studied in Central America, you can start to get a different picture than the standard model presents. The best book on this subject is Sorensen's Mormon's Codex. It's a beast of a scholarly text, lots of maps and references to keep the rabbit hole going deeper. If you're interested, let me know and I'll send you a copy. Yeah, I'd love a copy. I would like a digital copy. Anyway, this email is longer than anticipated, but again, I really want to thank you guys for stoking the fires of curiosity within myself, helping me shake off the shackles the world has had me in. My perspective is much purer now, and I can ignore the noisy crap that's going on. Lastly, I really need to get on the Discord channels. I'd like to see if there are any other Utah serpents that know of other interesting and hidden mysteries around me. I'm fairly new to Utah, and I'm sure there's a lot more here that I'm not aware of. Snakes always, from Carl. Yeah, man, jump in the Discord. Great email. Thank you.
So he is
much.
Mormon, or
Yeah.
just okay? Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I kind of think the same thing about Christianity. You know, like the biblical texts are. I mean, I think the main goal, if I could say the most modern goal, is for people to, you know, be better people and live better lives. But I think that that's perhaps not how they started.
Yeah.
It's like, that's the way I look at it now. It's like, it seems to be that these ancient texts are doing a lot of things, but for the big religions, the point is like a structure for how to live your life, and for your life to have meaning and more, I guess.
Yeah.
But I wonder about this. Like we talk about the way that some of these astronomical numbers are encoded into these texts, and that a lot of the accounts from, the early days may be oral traditions that were recorded eventually, and that these oral traditions are also written in the heavens and in constellations, and the stories, the mythology has to do with the constellations and their arrangement in the sky and how they change and traverse over the course of a year, and perhaps how they change in respect to precession of the equinoxes. And yeah, it's like, is this some sort of technology?
Yeah.
That someone developed to take these stories and somehow do multiple things with the story, relate to humanity?
That's what Matheson says again.
This is what, that's kind of what I'm talking about. It's like it relates to humanity. It relates to the individual and their path in life, but it's also telling you something about the history of the planet and the history of humans in general.
And implying something about harmony in the universe and life and everything and consciousness, like saying like all of this fits together. And when you're harmonious with it, then you live the best life. It's like there's this, like Matheson has this fascinating idea that it is, like you're saying, it's an ancient tech that is trying to sort of bring all of this stuff together, like show you here's how the universe does stuff. Here are all these weird patterns. And here's a way that all those patterns can apply to any person in general and help you live a better life.
In many different stages of your life.
Yeah, which implies like lost... like some kind of lost understanding, deeper understanding and knowledge of what existence is.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I agree. Like ancient texts that religions are based on seem to be fragments of recordings about that kind of thing that may be actually fragments of fragments of fragments from much older times. Yeah. It's fascinating stuff.
And I entertain the possibility that the Book of Mormon is the same thing. That's what we've been talking about. It's like
100%.
did this guy actually find something?
Yeah, I think so.
I think there's a possibility. Yeah.
All right, let's take another break. Still got more emails we'll tackle afterwards. Back, ladies and gentlemen. Second half of the show. Third segment. This is the Snake Bros Institute for Advanced Coprolite Studies, where there are no degrees, only certificates of ignorance that you have to print yourself or draw them out with a crayon.
When you're ready.
That's right. Certificate of ignorance. Learn that you don't know anything. And that the more you learn, the less you know.
History Shift printed ours.
That's right. Somebody
we had to
printed
sign it.
Yeah.
You have to sign it yourself.
Yeah, you do. All right, this is a comment on episode 218, Straight to Pyramids. This is from Mark. Who was a producer on the last show. Yeah. It says, "Hi guys, Mark here. It is so cool hearing your guys' talk about a trip that I was on with you. You guys are fun to hang out with. What I find most interesting is the perfect corners and flat insides the boxes where no one was ever supposed to see it. Blows my mind. Happy Thanksgiving."
Hey, buddy. Happy Thanksgiving. Yep. I totally agree, buddy.
Yeah. Yeah, we can talk about that some more, too, I think. We have more impressions of the Serapeum we can discuss.
Yeah. Hey, dude, maybe we could do the... Maybe I could pull up those videos and we could check the tunings of like I think 3 boxes.
Yeah, we could do that.
I know I looked in one. Did I get in 4? I looked in one of them that I didn't get the note for.
Yeah, because we could just play the audio. Is that what you're saying? Oh, yeah.
I mean, the videos were... One of the videos was black. I didn't even turn my headlamp on because I was trying to be sneaky.
Yeah. Okay. We got 2 final emails here from, let's see, this is Patty, who's also in the Discord, I believe, and is a Patreon supporter, I'm pretty sure. "Hey guys, happy Thanksgiving." This one's called Egyptian Dynasties. "Listening to your latest episode and had to sit down and send you a quick note to make a suggestion. When you discuss the Egyptian dynasties, I would suggest maybe one time explaining how the dynasties are broken down. Like, what does it mean when you say Old Kingdom or New Kingdom with dates, etc., and maybe relate them to historical texts like the Bible, etc., for context. I'm afraid maybe I'm not making much sense. No, you're totally making sense, and I did that for this episode. I've been obsessed with Egypt from a very early age, and it helped me a lot once I understood what the heck old, middle, intermediate kingdoms meant, haha. But then again, maybe it was just me who didn't understand, who knows. Anyway, amazing job you guys are doing. Thank you," from Patty.
So you want to just do that now?
Well, just one more short email here.
Okay.
So another one from Patty says, "Hola, just another quick note. In the show with Ben, you guys discussed the decomposing granite blocks. So it takes a gazillion years for granite to decompose, but what if those particular blocks have been exposed to something in the distant past and that's why they're falling apart, like radiation or some type of acid or solar flares?"
Yeah. Yep.
"The granite in the Valley Temple, the Assyrian, as far as I know, are not decomposing. So, also, did you guys see the ones in the Karnak Temple that are decomposing as well? It makes zero sense to me to find perfectly good blocks in some sites and decomposing ones in others. This ancient Egypt thing makes my head hurt. Thank you again," from Patty. So,
But in the Valley Temple,
they are decomposing in all of those sites.
Not
some places more than others, but if there's not, none of them have their...
And you would imagine that the blocks that have faces towards the north are decomposing less than blocks that have faces pointing to the south.
Yeah.
Or blocks that have faces pointing up.
That's right. And
so
blocks
they're going to be...
And you can tell in some cases where blocks have been protected by rubble and sand versus where they weren't. If they're still standing in the place that they were supposed to be. So it's like, if they were exposed, they're definitely decomposing for the most part. But yeah, all of those sites you mentioned, the Valley Temple, they're no longer smooth blocks. They're rough, and I've got pictures of decomposing corners, So, yeah. And what is it? What causes the decomposition? Will radiation do it? Absolutely. You know, radiation will damage, but you could. So if there was heavy radiation,
So
you would be able to look at the quartz and see that because you would find basically you could do a scar count, you know, in the like a scoring count in the crystal for heavy radiation particles passing through it and making marks. And they'll have that anyway because granite contains radioactive materials.
So I was going to ask you about that block, the blocks in that one little alcove that have the veneer-looking thing on the outside that's like this thick.
Oh yeah, isn't
And
that
the
that's
whole
a Karnak?
The whole inside is like really messed up. Do you think that that somehow there was like some kind of radioactive something inside that block?
Yeah, that could be. It's just weird that the outer layer is like so different in composition than the interior.
Yeah,
If
and
it
it's
was-
so regular around.
Yeah, it's
weird.
kind of a regular thing. Yeah, so that one's a big mystery. I don't know, but yeah, decomposition can be caused by any number of things, all of them together. But yeah, how long does it take? And again, that's about climate. And you know, if you go with standard model, we would just say they've always been in an arid climate. So how long will they decompose like that? How long does it take for them to decompose in an arid climate like that? But if they're really old, then the climate has been shifting over time.
Time to put some granite in the microwave.
Yeah. There you go.
Just do a little experiment. Make sure to duct tape the door shut first, just in case it explodes.
Yeah. All right. So yes, with the question about, you know, the dynasties, the kingdoms, the periods, and what's going on here, I just took a bunch of notes here, 1 page of notes, and this is just a brief overview. The point is try to give listeners a basic understanding of what's going on with the. It's impossible to memorize. Well, not impossible to memorize it, but you probably won't. But the point is that there's basically three different ways that the people will talk about periods in ancient Egyptian history. There's dynasties, and a dynasty is usually a period of a family name ruling, right? Not one guy, but like, you know, a family name. So once, like, you know, you've got Ramses the first, second, third, whatever. And then once those guys are done and it's a different name, that's a different dynasty. The kingdoms, usually, at least when you look through the histories, are based on the various kingdoms are based on when Egypt was united or not. Seems to be the kind of, because basically you'll have a kingdom, and the first old kingdom actually starts when the first pharaoh guy unites the upper and lower Egypt, or I guess that's early dynastic, so it doesn't work in the very beginning. But then you'll have an intermediate period where the Egypt splits again, and then it gets reunited, and the next kingdom starts. Usually is how it works. So the periods...
But I hear them just say Old Kingdom or New Kingdom stuff.
And Middle Kingdom.
Or Middle Kingdom, yeah.
Yeah.
So
Right.
there's three.
There's three of them, yeah. And so there's over 30 dynasties, all, you know, in total, which seems like a lot when you're talking about multiple family members ruling. But remember that the history is almost 3,000 years long. So yeah, there's Old Kingdom, Middle Kingdom, New Kingdom, and the intermediate periods. Pre-dynastic, the pre-dynastic period starts, basically think of it as anything before 3000 BC. The actual date given when you look it up is 2950 BC. So 2950 BC, and before that is pre-dynastic. So there was...
So Old Kingdom, Middle Kingdom, New Kingdom is all dynastic.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. The
don't even know this.
the early dynastic period, which actually starts before the Old Kingdom starts, has the first 3 dynasties. Okay. Its period is from 2950 BC to 2575 BC, which makes it 375 years long. It's the first, second, and third dynasties. Okay. So you got 375 years. There's only 3 dynasties, which means 3 different families ruled Egypt for almost 400 years. And this is early dynastic, before the Old Kingdom starts. Okay. So it begins with Menes, not sure if that's how you say it, and Menes unites Upper and Lower Egypt, and that's when historians start the early dynastic period in the first dynasty. He becomes the first pharaoh, right? And he rules Egypt as a whole, Upper and Lower together. So this is when you get all the imagery of like the two, you see these things with the crowns, and they're showing you the united Upper and Lower Egypt and all that's in the pharaohs.
The serpent and the
vulture.
Vulture,
yeah. So it's near the end of this period, the early dynastic period, in the third dynasty when Djoser builds the step pyramid at Saqqara. And then Sneferu at the very end builds the red, the bent, and the Maidum period at Dashur at Dashur and Maidum.
Right.
So the end of the early dynastic period in the third dynasty is when the pyramid, what we think of as the large pyramid building begins. Okay, so after that is Old Kingdom. Old Kingdom starts at 2575 BC and goes to 2150 BC. That's 425 years long. Okay. It includes dynasties 4 through 8. So 4 dynastic periods. And this is when Gizeh and Abu Sir, Abu Ghurab, the pyramids at Saqqara, and Abu Rawash. This is considered
5, sir.
I'm sorry, 5. This is considered the age of the pyramids. But it ends with poverty and famine, and the whole country falls apart. And then you have the first intermediate period, which lasts 175 years, from 2150 BC to 1975 BC, but includes dynasties 9 through 11.
They just weren't ruling both Upper and Lower.
Right. Yeah. So it falls apart. There's poverty and famine for whatever reason, and then the country splits apart again into Upper and Lower Egypt during the first intermediate period for 175 years. Then the Middle Kingdom starts with a pharaoh called Mentuhotep II reunites Egypt into one country in 1975 BC, and then this period lasts for 335 years to 1640 BC and includes dynasties 11 through 14. Okay. Then the second intermediate period, 1640 through 1520 BC. It's 120 years long, has dynasties 15 through 17. Okay, so I think I didn't write it down in here.
What gives them these periods? Like, why do they? Is it like architectural differences or what? What's
no,
the
I think
deal?
it's Egypt being united or not.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah. So the intermediate periods, for the most part, are Egypt split again.
Okay.
And chaos and problems. There's still pharaohs, but you've got 2 separate kingdoms. Right. And then somebody conquers everything and reunites the whole thing, and then that begins the next kingdom.
So if it splits, then they don't consider a pharaoh, like the part that split off doesn't have a pharaoh or doesn't have rulers, or
I don't know. I didn't dive into that. You're
okay,
So in these dynasties during the intermediate period, which part of Egypt are they ruling? Is it upper or lower? I would assume it's upper Egypt, but I don't know. Memphis, which was let's see, in the early dynastic period, once the guy first united it, he put its capital at Memphis, which is right in the middle, like right at the border of Upper and Lower Egypt. So Memphis and then they move the capital around all over the place over the thousands of years, and you're talking about centuries here. But that's a great question. Like, who are the pharaohs of the dynastic periods the dynasties during an intermediate period, and what were the people in the other part of Egypt that's not that part doing, and did they have pharaohs? That's a great question. Yeah. I don't know. I didn't get into that. Maybe we can look that up for a different show. All right. New Kingdom. And this is where the New Kingdom is where most of the pharaohs you've heard of or that people have heard of come from, most of the familiar names. It starts at 1520 BC, goes for 445 years to 1075 BC, and includes dynasties 18 through 20. This is where you have Tutmosis and Hatshepsut and Amenhotep III, who built Luxor and Akhenaten and Tutankhamun and Ramses II, and so on and so forth. Seti, all those guys.
Hat and cheap suit?
Hat and cheap suit. Hatshepsut.
Hot sheep suit?
Hot cheap suit. That's one. And people asked, what place did you somewhere we got this question. Which place did you not go to that you'd like to go to next time? And that would be the Temple of Hatshepsut. We did not go there.
Yeah.
And it's, I know it's a new kingdom structure. I still love to see it. It's absolutely gigantic and it's beautiful and it's set into the west bank of the Nile.
Yeah.
We saw it from the balloon.
We saw it from a distance. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so then there's the third intermediate period. Goes from 1075 to 653 BC, and you can tell as we get closer and to modern times, the dates become more precise. They're not just, they're not just. I just noticed that they're not like multiples of 5 anymore. They're actually giving you specific years.
Yeah.
So 1075 to 653 BC, 422 years long for the third intermediate period, and includes dynasties 21 through 24. Egypt gets divided again, and at the end of this period gets conquered by Assyria. The late period, 653 BC to 332 BC, 320 years long, dynasties 25 through 30. The Assyrians leave, then Persia comes and conquers it and stays around for 100 years. Then the Greeks conquer it with Alexander, and they start the Ptolemaic period at the very end of the late period. And the last pharaoh is the last Ptolemaic pharaoh, Cleopatra. And that is the end, basically, of what is considered to be the ancient Egyptian civilization. The ending of...
Wow.
Yeah. So there you go. From
thank you for that.
Starting from 2950 BC and going all the way to 321 or 332 BC.
So when is the Exodus supposed to have taken place? Like, what do biblical scholars think that falls in? Do you know?
That's a good question, and it may have been at the end of the Old Kingdom with the famine and stuff.
That's what I was thinking, because there's the story of the guy.
The Tutmosis also is New Kingdom, and that some people think that he may have been Moses. So I don't know. There's interesting theories.
Yeah, there is a story though. There's a biblical story of God, I can't remember his name. I'm thinking, is it Joseph?
Yeah, Joseph.
Yeah,
with the coat of many colors guy
yes,
goes,
yes.
Gets banished.
His brothers sell him as a slave.
Yeah.
Then he shows up that
he interprets the dream of the pharaoh and tells the pharaoh there's going to be a huge famine and you need to build.
There's 7 years of famine and then seven years of plenty and then 7 years of famine.
Right. I've also heard the theory, this is going to piss some people off, that Joseph was Imhotep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he helps Djoser, build the first pyramid and the canals and stuff as part of the project.
The project for the 7 years
and
of
then
plenty.
This would be an interesting idea about like all this stuff is for storing seeds and grain, right? Like these concepts that. So yeah. And then in the biblical story, Joseph's family, years and years later during the famine, shows up to Egypt to beg to buy grain because they're starving. And then there's Joseph up there as like the right hand guy of Pharaoh.
Yeah,
he's standing there as Imhotep. He who comes in peace.
Yeah, and he plays the tricks on the tricks on his brothers and like sends them away with the silver cup and whatever.
Right. Yeah.
Because he's trying to get him to bring his youngest brother.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
It's a weird deal.
It's weird.
But I feel like there's so much symbolism in that story that could be astronomy. Mm-hmm. And I mean, the dream is like the play within a play. His dream is like first there's like 7 fat cows or something, and then come these 7 scrawny cows, and they go and they eat all the fat cows.
Yeah.
And there's like all this weird, the bull or whatever, and then there's the wheat that's bowing down to the other wheat or whatever. There's all these weird dreams in there that you could...
Yeah, the pharaoh's dreams that are strange. Yeah.
You could think of... Joseph has dreams too, because in the beginning he dreams that his brothers are all bowing down to him.
That's right. Yeah, as the wheat.
And then they're like, "Screw you, bro!
Throw you down the well and sell you to Egypt."
Yeah, so I love those kind of stories just because you can really kind of dive into them and try to draw out the esoteric aspects of them in terms of like looking at the stars or possibly cataclysm. All that kind of stuff is fun to do.
Yeah. So back to this, rough history, like the way I try to think of it, because you can't memorize. I mean, memorizing all that stuff would be a pain in the ass. But basically what you can think of is Middle Kingdom starts roughly around the 10th dynasty. It's actually the 11th. But this is an easy way to sort of divide it in your mind. So anything before, anything like the Old Kingdom, the pre-dynastic or the early dynastic period, that's all like dynasties 1 through 10. Middle Kingdom starts at 11, right? And then you can think of the New Kingdom starting roughly around 20. It actually starts at 18, but everything from, so basically that gives you and there's intermediate periods in there and other stuff, but roughly speaking, you can think of everything all the way up to the end of the Old Kingdom is up through the 10th dynasty. Then the Middle Kingdom starts at the 11th, right? And then the New Kingdom roughly starts at the 20th, but it's 18th. So that's the way I try to remember it in my mind.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, sir.
Yeah, and again, Old Kingdom, the first dynasty of the Old Kingdom was the 4th dynasty. And this is the dynasty that's, when they'll show you 4th dynasty Old Kingdom structures all over Gizeh. And this is where Khufu and Khafre, these guys were building the pyramids on Gizeh, supposedly. This is all standard model, but in dynasties 4 through 8 of the Old Kingdom, Gizeh, all of Gizeh. So that would be the Great Pyramid, the Middle Pyramid, the small one, Menkaure, all the satellite stuff. Okay. Then the pyramid at Abu Sir, the pyramid at Abu Ghurab, all the stuff at Saqqara, and all the stuff at Abu Rawash, including a bunch of others, were built during these 4 dynasties in the Old Kingdom.
Okay.
So that,
right.
Yeah, they start the pyramid building stuff supposedly starts with Djoser in the early dynastic period in the 3rd dynasty.
Yeah.
But he builds the step pyramid. Right, but then after him, Sneferu famously builds 3 pyramids. The red, the bent, and the one at Maidum, which is collapsed now. And the red pyramid is considered to be the first, or let's see, the step pyramid of Djoser is considered to be the first dressed stone large pyramid ever built in Egypt. There's other structures that are much smaller, little mastabas and stuff. But the red pyramid is considered to be the first successful one. Successful, actual straight-walled pyramid, or, smooth-walled pyramid.
Pyramids can't be bent. That's just not cool.
Right, yeah. Yeah, even though that one has survived the best out of all of them.
I know. It's like... Yeah. Yeah. Well, the interior is not as nice as the Great Pyramid. I mean, the Great Pyramid's interior is pretty freaking awesome.
Right. But again, you're not talking about much longer.
But of course, that's due to people blowing shit up and whatever.
That's right. Yeah, lots of
damage.
Damage have been done to the insides of all of these pyramids.
Yeah.
I think the Great Pyramid just has a lot more space in it to do damage to.
Yeah.
Some of these other pyramids, there's a couple of chambers and that's it. So there's a lot of places for you to blow things. There's not very many places for you to blow stuff up. So they did a lot.
That multi-level floor thing that was crazy, just smashing through these floors.
That's right. Yeah.
That was in the bent pyramid, right?
Mm-hmm.
God.
Yeah. Okay. So there you go.
That's great.
Yeah.
Is that it for the emails?
Yes, it is. Emails are done.
Well, that's a great way to kick off the Egypt discussion. I've been telling myself, like, I need to learn more about this stuff because the whole time we were there, it was like, oh yeah, this is Old Kingdom, this is Middle Kingdom. I was oblivious to whatever that meant.
Except that
in
obviously one of them is old, the other one's in the middle, and the other one's newer than that, right?
Yeah. I didn't do my homework, but it was sort of a last minute
Yeah.
thing, and we had a lot of stuff to get wrapped up before we did it. But it's definitely the trip has definitely made me realize like the places I need to look and do more research to be prepared, when we go back.
Yeah.
Like what things to observe and I just found out that Monty,
he's still there.
Yeah, he's still there. He's on another tour
with Hughes. Yeah, with Hugh Newman, and he's on the Megalithomania tour.
Yeah,
where I guess it just ended. Yeah,
and they went and saw the grotto.
No,
in the Great Pyramid.
He didn't. Like he corrected that. He was like he climbed down to the subterranean chamber.
Oh,
yeah, he was calling it the grotto. I was like, really, Monty?
That's why I was like, you went down
into
the grotto
from the he was, and then he drew a map. He was like, I went from here to here, and we're like, okay, yeah, you were not even close to the grotto. You were. You went down the subterranean chamber.
I was like so jealous. I was just like, what?
Yeah.
How did he get down?
No, he didn't.
Okay.
He did not.
Because this is one of my big goals when we go back.
We're going to try to climb up into the grotto. Next time we'll go prepared for that.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll do it.
Yeah.
Darren will probably go up there with us too. Well, I don't know. Maybe, I don't know if he's claustrophobic or not. He'll probably still do it.
It's going to be...
It's going to be fun. I'll go first.
No way.
I have the fewest family.
You can stop me when I fall if I go first.
Right. Okay. Somebody's got to clear away the crickets and the bats.
No, this is my goal, man. I gotta go. I gotta do it. I gotta carry the LiDAR camera up there.
Okay. Well, we have so I don't know if we mentioned this yet on this podcast, but we are doing a test stream. Did we tell
The wife has already signed off on it. She's like, "Well, babe, you're just gonna have to train. You're just gonna have to get yourself ready.
Train for chimney climbing?
Yeah,
Find some old chimneys and climb up.
That's what I'm thinking. I'm like, how do I train for this?
So yeah, we're streaming this as a test to Twitch. So there is a chat, and we have actually, Patty is in the chat, the one I just read the emails from, and she says, "Do you think the middle pyramid has undiscovered chambers? Seems to be a large space to not have extra rooms in there somewhere." Yes.
I wouldn't be surprised if all of them had undiscovered chambers.
Yeah.
I also would not be surprised if there were chambers that had no passages to them.
Yeah. Yeah. And what would be the purpose of these chambers?
Those would be definitely time capsule chambers.
Yeah, they would work as time capsules for sure. Yeah. Do you think that's what they were looking for? Like, you see that huge slot that somebody dug out of the Menkaure pyramid? That's basically what they're looking for, is chambers that aren't connected to any
chamber.
Yeah. Just like you just basically dig a line straight through the middle of the body of the pyramid looking for a chamber that isn't connected to any other chamber in there, assuming that it's a tomb full of riches, right?
Yeah.
And we saw this, like, there's tons of evidence of looting and previous people blasting through walls, like Kyle was saying, and digging through stuff, looking for treasure, probably. This is how it's explained. They're looking for treasure.
Yeah.
But, even if it's not like burial treasure, if they found some ancient machinery, it would be treasure.
Right.
Metals, whatever. You might break into the chamber and there's no body in there, but there's tech, and it could still be considered to be treasure.
Yep.
If, like Petrie said, if like Petrie said that they had jewel-tipped cutting tools, then jewels are treasure.
Yes. Speaking of that, I have a bit on this. This is do you want me to read this?
Yes.
This is from Pyramids and Temples of Gizeh by Flinders Petrie.
William
Flinders Petrie.
Petrie Esquire the Third. Something like that.
I didn't realize it was William.
Yeah, isn't it William Flinders Petrie?
I don't know.
Maybe I got that wrong.
Yeah, so this is, he kind of numbers these sections. This is 129. The mechanical methods of the pyramid builders. Now, Chris Dunn talks about this part of this book. And you have to realize that at this time, like the time of his life, was the very beginning of, the development of precision tools and such, in the modern age. So he does a pretty good job, but this is very well, you'll hear it. He goes on to describe basically how they did everything.
Okay.
Right. And I'm not sure how long this is. I read this the other night. It could be really long.
Just read it. Or I'll read it, whatever.
I'll give it a shot.
Yeah.
The methods employed by the Egyptians in cutting the hard stones, which they so frequently worked, have long remained in doubt. Various suggestions have been made, some very impracticable, but no actual proofs of the tools employed or the manner of using them has been obtained. From the examples of work which I was able to collect at Gizeh, and from various fixed objects of which I took casts, the questions so often asked seem now to be solved. The typical method of working hard stones, such as granite, diorite, basalt, etc., was by means of bronze tools. These were set with cutting points, for harder than the quartz which was operated on. The material of these cutting points is yet undetermined, but only 5 substances are possible: beryl, topaz, chrysoberyl, corundum, or sapphire, and diamond. I don't know if that's chrysoberyl. I'm not sure. The character of the work would certainly seem to point to diamond as being the cutting jewel, and only the considerations of its rarity in general and its absence from Egypt interfere with this conclusion and render the tough, uncrystallized corundum the more likely material. Many nations, both savage and civilized, are in the habit of cutting hard materials by means of a soft substance, such as copper, wood, horn, etc., with a hard powder supplied to it. The powder sticks in the basis employed, and this being scraped over the stone to be cut, so wears it away. It is therefore very readily assumed by many persons, as I myself did at first, that this method must necessarily have been also used by the Egyptians, and that it would suffice to produce all the examples now collected. Such, however, is far from being the case, though no doubt in alabaster and other soft stones this method was used. That the Egyptians were acquainted with a cutting jewel far harder than quartz, and that they used this jewel as a sharp-pointed graver, is put beyond doubt by the diorite bowls with inscriptions of the 4th dynasty, of which I found fragments at Gizeh. These hieroglyphs are incised with a very free cutting point. They are not scraped nor ground out, but are plowed through the diorite with rough edges to the line. As the lines are only 1/150th of an inch wide, the figures being about 0.2 inches long. It is evident that the cutting point must have been much harder than quartz, and tough enough not to splinter when so fine an edge was being employed, probably only 1/200th of an inch wide. Parallel lines are graved only 1/30th of an inch apart from center to center. We therefore need to have no hesitation in allowing that the graving out of lines in hard stones by jeweled points was a well-known art. And when we find on the surface of saw cuts in diorite grooves as deep as 1/100th of an inch, it appears far more likely that such were produced by fixed jewel points in the saw than by any fortuitous rubbing out of a loose powder.
That part. Any fortuitous rubbing out of a loose powder?
Oh, yeah. That must have been quoted in Dunn's book.
That's right.
And when, further, it seems that these deep grooves are almost always regular and uniform in depth and equidistant, their production by the successive cuts of the jewel teeth of a saw appears to be beyond question. The best examples of equidistance are the specimens of basalt, number 4, and of diorite, number 12. In these fluctuations are no more than such as always occur in the use of a saw by hand power, whether worked in wood or in soft stone. On the granite core, broken from a drill hole, number 7, other features appear, which also can only be explained by the use of a fixed jewel point, or fixed jewel points. Firstly, the grooves of which run around it form a regular spiral, with no more interruption or waviness than is necessarily produced by the variations in the component crystals. This spiral is truly symmetrical with the axis of the core. In one part of a groove can be traced, with scarcely an interruption, for a length of 4 turns. Secondly, the grooves are as deep in the quartz as in the adjacent feldspar, and even rather deeper. If these were in any way produced by loose powder, they would be shallower in the harder substance, quartz, whereas a fixed jewel point would be compelled to plow to the same depth in all components, and further, inasmuch as the quartz stands out slightly beyond the feldspar, owing to the latter being worn by general rubbing, the groove was thus left even less in the depth of the feldspar than on the quartz. Thus, even if specimens with similarly deep grooves could be produced by a loose powder, the special features of this core would still show that fixed cutting points were the means here employed. That the blades of the saws were of bronze we know from the green staining on the sides of the saw cuts and on grains of sand left in a saw cut. The forms of these tools were straight saws, circular saws, tubular drills, and lathes. Section 130. The straight saws varied from 0.03 to 0.2 inches thick, according to the work. The largest were 8 feet or more in length, as the cuts run lengthways on the Great Pyramid coffer, which is 7 feet 6 inches long. The examples of saw cuts figured in plate 14 are as follows. Number 1, from the end of the Great Pyramid coffer of granite, showing where the saw cut was run too deep into the stuff twice over and backed out again. Number 2, a piece of cyanite picked up at Memphis, showing cuts on 4 faces of it and the breadth of the saw by a cut across the top of it. This probably was a waste piece from cutting out the statue in the rough. Number 3, and then number 3, a piece of basalt showing a saw cut run askew and abandoned, with the sawing dust and sand left in it. A fragment from the sawing of the great basalt pavement on the east of the Great Pyramid. Number 4. Another piece from the same pavement showing regular and well-defined lines. Number 5. A slice of basalt from the same place, sawn on both sides and nearly sawn in two. So anyways, he goes through a bunch of other examples.
Well, yeah, we got to take a break.
Oh.
But let's just think about this during the break. He said from 0.03 of an inch to 0.2 of an inch in width.
I know. I know.
0.03 of an inch. So let's think about that. Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
I think is that maybe the width of the tip of a cutting
maybe,
jewel?
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. There's a bunch of plates too that I can't show you, but all right, we'll be right back. Snakes. We are back, ladies and gentlemen. A relentless and unstoppable pursuit of pyramids here on Brothers of the Serpent podcast. And I am reading from Pyramids and Temples of Gizeh by William Flinders Petrie.
Maybe I should look that up, see if that's right.
I've always thought it was just Flinders Petrie, but
I'll look it up.
What do I know? Anyway, that's not the point. The point is pyramids.
Yes.
So he is basically talking about the methods used by the builders. This is 131. Next, the Egyptians adapted their sawing principle into a circular instead of a rectilinear form, curving the blade round into a tube, which drilled out a circular groove by its rotation. Thus, by breaking away the cores left in the middle of such grooves, they were able to hollow out large holes with a minimum of labor. These tubular drills vary from 1/4 inch to 5 inches in diameter, and from 1/30 to 1/5 of an inch thick.
Sir William Matthew Flinders Petrie.
Oh, crap.
FRS FBA, commonly known as Flinders Petrie, an English Egyptologist and pioneer of systematic methodology in archaeology and preservation of artifacts.
Sir Matthew William Flinders Johnson Petrie.
That's right. I knew William was in there.
Hey.
We can just call him Bill.
All right. Old Bill Pete. All right. The smallest hole yet found in granite is 2 inches in diameter. All the lesser holes being in limestone or alabaster, which was probably worked merely with tube and sand. A peculiar feature of these cores is that they are always tapered, and the holes always enlarged towards the top. In the soft stones cut merely with loose powder, such a result would naturally be produced simply by the dead weight on the drill head, which forced it into the stone, not being truly balanced, and so always pulling the drill over to one side. As it rotated, this would grind off material from both the core and the hole. But in the granite core number 7, such an explanation is insufficient, since the deep cutting grooves are scored out quite as strongly in the tapered end as elsewhere. And if the taper was merely produced by rubbing of powder, they would have been polished away and certainly could not be equally deep in the quartz as in the feldspar. Hence, we are driven to the conclusion that auxiliary cutting points were inserted along the side as well as the edge of the tube drill. As no granite or diorite cores are known under 2 inches diameter, there would be no impossibility in setting such stones working either through a hole in the opposite side of the drill or by setting a stone in a hole cut through the drill and leaving it to project both inside and outside the tube.
Yeah.
Then
Seems like it would cause a problem in the structural integrity of the tube, but yeah.
Yeah, putting, what did he say? How
Carving
many
holes
tons?
in there and putting jewels into the holes of the drill so that it's got jewels going all the way up the tube. Yeah.
Yes. The structural integrity of the tube would be, especially if you're putting 2 tons on it.
Yeah.
Or whatever he said. Like,
Right.
I don't even understand how. I don't know. Is that what he said?
Yeah, to achieve the what he calls the feed rate, or the how much it's plowing through the material. That if you're using jeweled tips and it's basically a tube and the cutting action is spinning the tube, that in order to get that kind of feed rate, you'd have to put 2 tons of pressure onto the tube.
Maybe he says that somewhere. Did I read that already? I don't know. Anyway, I got to move on here. And I lost my place. Let's see.
Happens to the best of us. That would be me.
Then a preponderance of the top weight to any side would tilt the drill so as to wear down the groove wider and wider, and thus enable the drill and the dust to be the more easily withdrawn from the groove. The examples of tube drilling on plate number 14 are as follows. So then he goes on to describe all that. Let's see.
Can you summarize what he's saying about the plate?
Let's see. So he's talking about core number 7, and then number 8, a section of a cast of a pivot hole in a lintel of the granite temple at Gizeh. Here, the core being of tough hornblende, I guess, which is a
Hornblende?
Hornblende, Homblende,
Yeah.
could not be entirely broken out and remains to a length of 0.8 inches. So there's a piece of the core still in the hole. So he's talking about.
So he's talking about a pivot point. So it's like a hinge hole in the top of the lintel, or in the bottom of a lintel stone.
Pivot
right?
point
where
for
a
a door.
was. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So he's just listing all of the stones in here.
Yeah. We saw lots of those pivot points. Yusuf always pointed them out in the temples and places we were going to. They would be way up there at where the lintel goes across the gigantic doorway. You'd see these holes, and then there would be usually matching holes in the floor.
Yeah, that's right. Let's see.
No, the holes were near where the lintel hit the walls, because that's where you put the hinges of the 2 doors.
So here, number 13, a piece of limestone from Gizeh, showing how closely holes were placed together in removing material by drilling. The angle of junction shows that the groove of one hole just overlapped the groove of another, without probably touching the core of the adjacent hole. Thus, the minimum of labor was required. The examples of tube drilling on a large scale are the great granite coffers, which were hollowed out by cutting rows of tube drill holes, just meeting and then breaking out the cores and intermediate pieces. The traces of this work may be seen inside the Great Pyramid coffer, where 2 drill holes have been run too deeply into the sides, and on a fragment of the granite coffer with a similar error of work on it, which I picked up at Gizeh. At El Berche, at 27 degrees 42 minutes, there is still a larger example where a platform of limestone rock has been dressed down by cutting it away with tube drills about 18 inches in diameter. The circular grooves occasionally intersecting prove that it was merely done to remove the rock.
18 inches.
That is a large tube drill.
Yeah. It's limestone, so not as hard, but still 18 inches across.
Or it's saying it's by cutting it away with tube drills about 18 inches in diameter. So I can't tell if he's saying they cut it.
The drill itself is 18 inches, or that's
or
how
that
big the hole is.
that's how much they cut away.
Okay, yeah.
But yeah, it seems like that's the tube drill size.
Yeah.
132. The principle of rotating the tool was, for smaller objects, abandoned in favor of rotating the work. And the lathe appears to have been as familiar an instrument in the 4th dynasty as it is in modern workshops.
So again, 4th dynasty is the beginning of the Old Kingdom.
And this is, the step pyramid of Djoser, where all the stone bowls and stuff were found.
Yeah, so that would be the
3rd dynasty. Or
third, right.
But yeah, that's close with 100
yeah.
years
Yeah,
or whatever.
right. Yes, exactly.
The diorite bowls and vases of the Old Kingdom are frequently met with and show great technical skill. One piece found at Gizeh, number 14, shows that the method employed was true turning and not any process of grinding, since the bowl has been knocked off its centering, recentered imperfectly, and the old turning not quite turned out.
Johns.
Dang it, Johns. Thus, there are 2 surfaces belonging to different centerings and meeting up in a cusp. So you can thank Johnsons all throughout time for showing us the methods used.
By making errors and incorrectly correcting their errors, we can tell that they were using high technology.
Certain types of technology.
Thanks, Johns.
Appreciate that, Johns. Such an appearance could not be produced by any grinding or rubbing process which pressed on the surface. Another detail. So yeah, that's because if it was just pressing on the surface, it would have slowly ground the two different centerings.
Yes.
But instead, with a turning, it's a fixed point.
It's a fixed point
where it's cutting. So
because the tool is fixed.
It's not digging quite deeply enough into the new, since it's off center.
Yeah.
It's not digging quite deeply into the side. So in other words, it turns halfway around, it digs some.
Yeah.
And then the other half, it's
missing the
edge totally.
That's right. Yeah.
Where was I? Another detail is shown by fragment number 15. Here the curves of the bowl are spherical and must have therefore been cut by a tool sweeping an arc from a fixed center while the bowl rotated. This center or hinging of the tool was in the axis of the lathe for the general surface of the bowl right up to the edge of it. But a lip was wanted. The centering of the tool was shifted, but with exactly the same radius of its arc, and a fresh cut made to leave a lip to the bowl.
So he's saying the turning point of the tool at the first working was in the axis that the lathe was turning the block or whatever that they were making into a vase. And then to make the lip, they moved the axis or they moved the tool to a different place.
Yeah, so just think of I saw a picture of the profile of this bowl that he had in drawing, and this is how I understood. I got it, and I can show this to you, and maybe you'll have a good way to explain it here. You should put this in the show notes. So if it's in the show notes, it's D15 at the bottom of the picture.
Okay.
So he's showing the arc, the circular arc that makes the bowl overall all the way to the top of the bowl, and then the tool is shifted to one side, but it's the same radius, and it makes the inside lip.
Yeah.
Of the bowl.
I see that. They move it closer
out of the axis
They move
of
it
the
out
lathe.
of the axis of the lathe, and then that will cut the inside lip.
Yeah.
Because
So
once
if you
extend it out,
imagine the wheel on a car standing on its side, right, and it's spinning, and you're right there at the axle with a cutting tool, and the cutting tool is fixed, and you're swinging it left to right, it's making a radius, and you could say if you mounted a big ass stone to that thing, you can cut digging into the middle of it. You can cut this
bowl shape. Yeah.
bowl shape using a single radius to make the bowl.
Yeah.
Then you shift the axis to the left,
Like a half an inch.
and reach across past the axis to the other side of the bowl and cut a little lip in the side of the bowl. Is basically what it looks like.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I thought that was really cool. I'd heard that referenced before. So it's just showing you that they're turning the work,
Right.
and not the cutting tool.
Yeah. Yeah, the cutting tool can move along a rotation point, but and it probably does while the work is happening. You'd swing it back and forth, but it's the stone that they're cutting is the thing that's spinning.
That's right.
Yeah.
So he says that this was certainly not a chance result of handwork is shown, not only by the exact circularity of the curves and their equality, but also by the cusp left where they meet.
Yeah, that's right. There's a visible change
in the angle
where the tool from its new axis reaches
yeah.
begins to cut, and it's actually a sharp line. Yeah.
That's right. This point has not been at all rounded off, as would certainly be the case in handwork.
Yep.
And it is clear proof of the rigidity or the rigidly mechanical method of striking the curves.
Mm-hmm.
Hand graving tools were also used for working on the irregular surfaces of statuary, as may be well seen on the diorite statue of Khafra around at Gizeh, and now at
that would be Khafra unthroned.
Bulak.
Or Khafra enthroned. Enthroned.
Khafra unthroned.
Unthroned. He was thrown in a pit.
Series on Netflix.
Thrown in a pit upside down. Khafra unthroned.
133. The great pressure needed to force the drills and saws so rapidly through the hard stones is very surprising. Probably a load of at least a ton or two was placed on the 4-inch drills cutting in granite. 2 tons.
Yeah.
One of those rocks that I excavated, set that on a 4-inch drill.
Yeah, that's God. 0.2 of an inch in thickness.
What?
Made of bronze. Yeah, I believe Tony in the pit, and I'm quoting directly, he said that Petrie probably pulled that number right out of his ass. That's what he said.
I can agree with that. Yeah.
I mean, you probably could do some kind of calculations, like, you know, how much will this jeweled cutting tip gouge through this kind of material
without twisting off the tube itself? I mean,
well, just assume that the tube is infinitely strong. How much weight do you have to put on that jeweled cutting tip to make it pass through the material without worrying about tube?
Without
like if I've got a diamond cutting tips around this tube, and I'm spinning the tube, and I need a feed rate of X amount. How much pressure do I have to put on there?
All right, you computer modelers out there, just make us a model.
Yeah.
And that's the only thing it will be.
It's only a model. Where's mine?
What, behind the rabbit?
We need that. We need only the model.
Yeah.
Let's see. On the granite core number 7, the spiral of the cut sinks 0.1 inch in the circumference of 6 inches. Or 1 in 60. A rate of plowing out of the quartz and feldspar, which is astonishing. Yet these grooves cannot be due to the mere scratching produced in withdrawing the drill, as has been suggested, since there would be about 1/10 of an inch thick of dust between the drill and the core at that part. Thus, there could be scarcely any pressure applied sideways, and the point of contact of the drill and granite could not travel around the granite, however the drill might be turned about. So in other words, if it was due to the drawing out, you'd have to push it to the side and apply a ridiculous amount of pressure, and then it wouldn't go around.
Yeah.
It would just be on one side.
That's right. Yep.
Hence, these rapid spiral grooves cannot be ascribed to anything but the descent of the drill into the granite under enormous pressure, unless indeed we suppose a separate rimering tool, rimering, R-Y-M-E-R-I-N-G, I've never heard of that, a rimering tool to have been employed alternately with the drill for enlarging the groove, for which there is no adequate evidence. 134. That no remains of these saws or tubular drills have yet been found is to be expected, since we have not yet found even waste specimens of work to 1/10 of the amount that a single tool would produce. Now that is a very interesting point, right? We're talking about the granite quarry. Mm-hmm. And if they were using diorite pounders, there should be loads of black sand.
Yeah. That's right.
Because if you go up to and you clean off a spot and you take one of those diorite pounders and you sit there and you bang on the granite with one of those pounders, you have this like salt and pepper looking dust under
you get
it.
the same amount of diorite dust as you do granite dust.
maybe a little bit less.
Yeah.
But yeah, there should be tons. And so that's what he's saying here. We don't find, I think that's what he's saying. We don't find 1/10 of the materials from the work as we do from the work itself. Right.
Yeah.
Let's see. Where was I?
Suddenly my phone is exploding.
Yeah, so he says, we have not found even waste specimens of work to 1/10 of the amount that a single tool would produce.
Yeah. So he's asking where is the waste in general, not just from the tool itself falling apart, but where's the waste of the rock they were digging out?
Yeah, so he's saying like we haven't even found as much, like not even 1/10 as much as one tool would produce.
Right. Yeah.
Not to mention all of the thousands of tools that probably were used.
Yeah.
So I think that's pretty awesome. So so the point is like, that the fact that there are no remains of these saws and tubular drills is to be expected, since you don't even find the dust of the work itself.
Yeah, right. Okay. That makes sense.
Let's see. And the tools, instead of being thrown away like the waste, would be most carefully guarded.
Yeah.
Again, even of common mason's chisels, there are probably not a dozen known, and yet they would be far commoner than jeweled tools, and also more likely to be lost or to be buried with the workmen.
Mm-hmm.
The great saws and drills of the pyramid workers would be royal property, and it would perhaps cost a man his life if he lost one, while the bronze would be remelted and the jewels reset when the tools became worn, so that no worn-out tools would be thrown away.
Guess Johnson's didn't last long in ancient Egypt.
I mean, these are all good points, I think. I know.
Johnson, you lost the royal cutting tool.
I tell you, that Johnson who dropped the hook handle rod, he is a goner. Poor guy. 135. He got literally fired. Anyway, of the various other details of mechanical work mentioned is made in different sections of this volume. Okay. The red marking of the mason's lines is described in section 63, which I haven't checked out yet. I guess the mason's lines, I'm not sure. The use of testing planes and working surfaces is in section 170, blah, 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 blah. He's describing stuff elsewhere in the book.
Yeah, where to find stuff in the book.
And he says fuller details of some of the specimens and examples of work will be found in a paper on the mechanical methods of the Egyptians, which seems like a good paper to look for.
One, yeah.
It's in the Anthropological Journal for 1883. So yeah, that's the end of that section. I just found that to be pretty interesting.
Sir William Matthew Flinders Petrie, destroying the script-art since 1853.
Yeah, I thought a part that was included in this was him describing the actual building methods, which was not in there.
Maybe that's earlier.
I'll find it and we'll do it on another show.
Well, that was great.
I do have a couple more things.
Yeah, we could do a whole book report on that book.
I know. That's what I think we should do.
We should definitely do it.
This is a great book, but there's large sections that would have to be skipped just because he's
of course
tables of measurements and all this stuff, which is valuable, but not good for a podcast. Okay, so I just have a couple of things. And this is regarding the interior of the Great Pyramid. So he's talking about the granite plugs, I mean, we've talked about this, but this is a really strange aspect of the Great Pyramid, these granite plugs in the ascending passageway.
Yeah.
It seems that they had to have been built in place. Which means that nobody ever traversed that passage.
Yeah.
So it's not a passage.
Yeah. That's right.
You couldn't even consider it a
I mean,
passage.
there's this idea that they slid them down afterwards, but it's like they're so
Yeah.
tightly in there. You're just like, I don't think that would work.
Yeah, there's some labels that we should talk about.
Yeah.
Like doors. Basically are walls. They're
Yeah.
not doors.
They're not
but
doors.
they call it a door if like, 2 feet through it is a passageway.
Yeah.
Even though it was like built into the wall. It doesn't open.
Yeah.
It's a door.
Right.
And a passageway, even though it has like 18 feet of solid granite in it, is a passageway.
It's a passageway. Right.
So, yeah. I find this part of the pyramid interesting. The granite plugs are kept back from slipping down by the narrowing of the lower end of the passage, to which contraction they fit. Thus, at the lower or north end, the plug is but 38.2 inches wide in place of 41.6 inches at the upper end. Mm-hmm. The height, however, is unaltered, being at the lower end 47.3 inches on the east, 47.15 the midway, and 47.26 inches on the west.
Yeah. So basically, very close.
Very close to the same.
Yeah.
And at the upper or south end, 47.3 inches. Then he says, in the trial passages, the breadth is contracted from 41.6 inches to 38 inches and 37.5 inches like this. But the height is also contracted there from 47.3 inches to 42.3. So he's comparing the trial passages to the passages in the Great Pyramid in this book. This is cool.
Which we need to see if we can. We've talked to Ben about this, about getting a look at those trial passages.
Yeah. And he's got diagrams of the trial passages in here, too.
Ah.
These plug blocks are cut out of boulder stones of red granite and have not the faces cut sufficiently to remove the rounded outer surfaces at the corners. Also, the faces next to each other are never very flat, being wavy about plus or minus 0.3. I guess that's 0.3 feet because they are very rough. Like the front and backs of these things are,
Yeah.
I think. Or maybe that's the broken one that I was looking at. These particular, but 0.3 inches, I mean, that's pretty flat. These particulars I was able to see by putting my head in between the rounded edges of the second and third blocks from the top, which are not in contact.
In the trial passages or in the pyramid?
No, in the pyramid.
Okay.
The trial passages don't have granite blocks in them.
Okay.
He was just saying that the ascending passage in the trial passages also narrows towards the descending passage.
Okay.
But it narrows on both the upper and lower as well as the sides.
Okay, yeah.
Whereas the one in the pyramid is the same on the...
It's horizontal narrowing, not vertical. Is that what he's saying?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
So, where was I? Okay, so he says he was able to put his head in between the rounded edges of the second and third blocks from the top, which are not in contact, the second having jammed tight 4 inches above the third. The present top one is not the original end. It is roughly broken, and there is a bit of granite still cemented to the floor some way farther south of it.
Yeah, this is a mystery.
So a chunk of granite is still stuck to the floor of the ascending passage further up the passage.
Right. So wait, they slid them down the passages with cement on them?
I don't know if cemented means it was like mortar.
Or if it's just stuck there from time?
Stuck to it, yeah.
Okay.
I don't know, but from appearances there, I estimated that originally the plug was 24 inches beyond its present end. So even if you slid all the blocks...
So somebody broke the end of the top block, the top end of the top granite plug
and
off
it
of there.
slid down. Well, what were you thinking?
Well, I'm just thinking that one of those anomalous random pieces of granite elsewhere in the pyramid might be the end of that block.
I thought that too. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, could be.
Okay.
So he says it has been a favorite idea. It has been a favorite idea with some that 2 horizontal joints in the passage roof just south of the plugs were the beginning of a concealed passage. I therefore carefully examined them. They are 60.5 or 60.1, second measure, apart vertically, and therefore quite different to the passages of the pyramid, which are 47 inches perpendicularly or 52 inches vertically. So because the passage is sloping, you can measure horizontally level the distance between two joints. Like if you're measuring the distance between two joints in the ceiling, you could use a level and measure this, horizontally how far apart they are, or you can measure up the slope, which would give you a longer measurement.
Yeah.
Okay. This is kind of hard to understand. I mean, I had to read over this to try to figure this out. So he's basically saying if you're measuring along the slope of them, they're 52 inches apart, these two joints. Further, there is no possibility of the blocking up of a passage existing there, as the stone of the roof is continuous, all in one with the sides. So again, the ascending passage has stones that go all the way over. In other words, it's a trough cut into a stone and the stone's flipped over.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's and so the point is that people were thinking, because of these two interesting joints that don't seem to match joints elsewhere in the passages, that they thought, oh, this is a door to another passage in the ascending passage above the granite plugs. And he examines them and finds out, no, this can't be a door, because it's part of the wall. The ceiling is also part of both walls.
Yeah.
It's one block.
Right. One giant block.
Yeah.
Cut the passage.
This is the kind of
through.
stuff I wish we would have read so we could look at this stuff. Okay, yeah. So as the stone of the roof is continuous, all in one with the sides, the three roof blocks between the two horizontal joints are all girdle blocks. And I didn't look that up. Girdle, Girdle, but I think that
means they go all
either wholly round the passage or partially so.
Yeah.
And the block north of these is a long one, over 125 inches from east to west, and continuous into both walls. These vertical girdle blocks are a most curious feature of this passage, first observed and measured by Mr. Wayman Dixon, and occur at intervals of 10 cubits, or 206 to 208.9 inches, in the passage measuring along the slope.
Oh, they're in intervals. Oh.
All the stones that can be examined round the plugs are partial girdle blocks, evidently to prevent the plugs forcing the masonry apart by being wedged into the contracted passage. Many of the stones about the blocks in Mamun's hole are over 10 or 11 feet long. The ends are invisible, but probably they are about 15 feet overall. Wow.
Is that a stopping point?
Yeah, it's a stopping point. I just thought that was really interesting.
That's good stuff.
That ascending passage. I mean, he's saying these, people were thinking like this could be a doorway, and he goes to check it out, and then he's like, okay, these are very unusual, very peculiar.
Right. Which doesn't make them a door.
No, it doesn't make them a door, but it reminds me of Gantenbrink.
Yeah, talking about this, you recognize the engineer's thinking and the structural parts.
Yeah, so his idea is that this is to keep the granite plugs from forcing the masonry apart.
Yeah.
So you've got the plugs are being wedged into this block. It's a single block.
Yeah.
That goes from the walls over the ceiling and back down to the wall.
Right.
And so this makes me wonder, what is the freaking purpose of this?
I also am like, wait a minute. It's going to force the masonry apart down here at the bottom of the pyramid, where the rest of the pyramid is stacked on top of this masonry? I just find that hard to believe. Unless what he means is it would have forced the masonry apart because those plugs were put in there before all those courses were put on top of them. Then the plugs could have pushed the masonry apart. If they're wedged in and you don't have a ton of courses on top because you're putting them in there as you build the pyramid, then yes, it can push the masonry apart.
Slide the first one down in there and it shoves the masonry apart.
So you need girdle blocks to keep that from happening. But if they were slid into place after the pyramid was complete, you don't have to worry about it pushing any masonry apart.
Right. Which begs the question, why the hell make a passage and then fill it with granite?
Fill it with granite.
It's so weird, dude.
Yeah. Mysteries abound here on Brothers of the Serpent podcast. And in
freaking weird. God.
Well, that was great, man. Thank you. Yeah, we'll need to do a full book report on that.
Yeah.
That's good stuff.
Are we out of time again?
We're totally out of time. Podcast is over.
All right.
Yeah.
I mean, damn it.
Yeah. All right, you guys can get a hold of us, brothersoftheserpent at gmail.com. Check the website for all the podcast-related stuff, brothersoftheserpent.com. Join the Pyramid Scheme if you want to support us and the show. We use that. Oh yeah, we
Speaking
have some
of which, we
stuff.
have a Eldor.
Eldor
Is executive producer of Snake Bros show 221.
All right.
With a $100 donation. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And I think all he said was snakes, but I'll have to check just to make sure.
Yeah, so on the website, you can find the Pyramid Scheme to donate to the show, and there's crypto wallet addresses there, and the Patreon, and PayPal. Is that what he said? Snakes?
Yeah, that was his note.
That's a perfect note.
Thanks, buddy.
Give us reviews if you can. If you can't donate monetarily, it does help to spread the podcast around by giving us reviews on Apple Podcasts. That really does help. So thanks to all of you who've done that. I see your reviews coming in steadily, so appreciate that. Join the Discord if you want to hang out with like-minded snakes and have great discussions on all these mysteries and more that we discuss on the podcast. You know, anything you're into, UFO stuff, the missing 411, ancient civilizations, all of it's there. And if it's not, you can start a place for it to be there. There's plenty of people that talk about all kinds of stuff. It's always going. Got people around the world in there. So thanks to Jeff and all the admins who run the Discord for us. It really helps a lot. Thanks to History Shift for making all the YouTube videos. Pod Doodles, who is still working on our UFO episodes with Marty. Some of them he's having to split into 3 parts.
Oh, man. Wow.
Yeah, so thanks to that guy. And thanks to Soraya from Where Did the Road Go? Last week's show was a lot of fun, buddy. It's always fun to be on your show. And you guys should all go check out his podcast if you haven't before, for lots of paranormal stuff. And Soraya's got a great show, so go check that out. And, of course, Ben from Uncharted X. And all of you listeners out there, we love you guys.
Always have.
Always will.
Good night, Adamu.
Get back to work.